Awesome. Well, welcome back, everybody. I am your host, Patty Dempsey, and I am very excited about this next episode and having everybody get to know these two men that I have just come to so highly respect. And thank you, Pastor Joel Sokowski, Pastor Jonathan Fries, for coming onto this show and giving all of our listeners an opportunity to get to know you and your podcast. This is such a unique podcast. What the flock, right? And so, it's just, it's amazing. This community and why I do this podcast is so deep in my heart, because we all are seeing the growing hurting that is all around us, the people around us that are hurting, and we want to know how to help them. And your podcast has such a unique way of helping those who are hurting, with a unique focus of helping those specifically who have been hurt by church. So thank you for that. Thank you for what I've learned and what our community is going to be able to learn from you today. So thank you for your time and for coming on to this interview. I want people to get to know you and get to know this podcast. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
Nice. So for the first question, I would like to ask you to help our listeners just get to know you a little bit more. Why did you pick helping those who have been hurt by church as your focus for What the Flock?
Because I'm one of those people. That's as simple as it gets for me. It's the story of my life and the journey I've been on to where I am today. So much of the victory and success that I've had in my walk with God has been learning the things that have helped me overcome the frustrations and damage that I've experienced at the hands of the people who were supposed to help me the most. So,
yeah, and that's a great answer, Pastor Joel. I'm the same way. We're all in that camp, and I think that we see it as the biggest gap in the church right now. That there's more people who have, gap or issue in the church. There's more people who have left church that used to go to church than are currently in church.
Yeah, I see that.
So that's where, I do think that there's a lot of believers out there who would love to be a part of a community and would love to be a part of a church again, but they have so many issues with the church that they don't want to come back. And so what we're doing is we're just trying to heal people with the ways that we have found healing ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have we have a huge heart for people because we were those people, and we feel like we've gotten some answers that can help heal that and help people, maybe come back into church again, or just have a different perspective, so that if they are choosing to leave, they can do that in a good conscience and they don't have to live their lives feeling guilty.
Nice, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that with your different perspectives. I love how you so compassionately share that, we understand those that have left. We understand why you leave, and from your own personal experience. I'm one of those that was right on the edge of being done with church, because I was so frustrated and hurt and confused. And so thank you again. And so as we're in a time for your podcast where you're wrapping up season 3, I would like to share that as I've listened through seasons 1 through 3, I feel like I went on a bit of a journey through my own life listening through these podcasts, because I grew up in churches that were definitely about all those controversial topics about the do's and don'ts. And because of that, I had a lot of concern about whether I was saved, whether I was good enough, whether I was doing enough. And then also from the perspective of being in churches that were like, you're good. Jesus did it all, God did it all. And I'm like, okay, this is it, So like there was just a lot of anxiety that I went through and around that. So I feel like you brought me through my journey of my life in these first 3 seasons, and I experienced so many times where you put words to my feelings. You asked the questions that I didn't know how to ask to help heal those areas so that I could have that confidence in my salvation and know, all right, now what? So thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So as you've gone through seasons 1 through 3, what has been the response from your listeners as you're wrapping up season 3?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people, maybe not as eloquently as you just explained your experience, but have similar experiences as you.
Nice.
Largely our audience is still people who we've known for years and who are really big supporters of what me and Pastor Jonathan do already. So it's been really awesome to have people really experiencing and learning these issues at a deeper level and understanding how they've been impacted by these areas of damage. A lot of people recognizing areas they didn't even know they had damage, and it's getting repaired before it really rears its ugly head in their life. But I'll tell you, the overwhelming majority of responses I get are people who are just so excited about Pastor Tater and his family.
Nice. Yeah.
That is usually the response I hear. People getting emotional over the journey he's been on, and as you know how season 3 ended, there's a lot going on in the Tater family.
Yeah, total cliffhanger, right?
Yeah, it is. I completely agree. That's what's going on, is that the feedback that we've received are people are really connected with the journey of the Taters.
Yeah.
And they really feel strongly and invested. And I would say that a similar arc with what you were sharing about with yourself, Patty, there are people that are experiencing that same arc, I think, with the Taters that the Tater family is going through. And I think the reason why people feel so connected to the journey that the Taters are going on is because they themselves have lived that.
Yeah.
They know what it's like, someone being married or being a pastor or whatever, having kids that leave and all of that. Like, I think the story is really similar. So it's been amazing. And I think that another feedback that we've gotten from people is just that, Joel and I we seem to be having a lot more fun together. And that the topics and the things that we're saying are people are saying that they're more inspired. Like, I'm learning from listening to your podcast, like, as the seasons progress, in a different way. They're like, oh, I never put this together like you guys did. And we get to say, well, we didn't either.
Yeah.
It's something new that happened during the podcast that we really didn't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's happening a lot.
Really? That's awesome. So, like, along the way, you feel like you're discovering new things, even as you guys are talking and collaborating on the show?
Absolutely.
Yeah, in the moment, like a lot of...
Wow.
Obviously we do some research beforehand to prepare ourselves for the episodes, but so much of what we're talking about and learning is happening in the moment too. So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
Well, and that was one thing, that question that I had, because you guys are covering some pretty tense topics. And, I've heard you say that there's some times that you'll get criticism from what you say or what you do, either through your podcast or through your respective churches. And, you just learn how to handle it in the moment, learn how to handle the criticism. But I've also, along the way, keep hearing you share how much fun you're having. So how do you keep having so much fun doing such difficult work?
Well, I think
that's an excellent question.
Yeah, it is. One of the big lessons I've learned is, I'll go back to improv, because a lot of what Pastor Jonathan and I are doing in these times when we're having the most fun is is kind of like improv, where there is a scene that's set or a topic that we're given, and we just start talking about it. And there's a lot of tension in that, where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the other person's going to say. Sometimes there's things we're saying that I can, as I'm saying it, or as Jonathan's saying it, I'm sitting here cringing because I'm already thinking about how other people are going to receive it. Like, we've literally started Music Life Church podcast by saying, whoa, all right, we're going to get some pushback on that. But what I've learned is through like doing practice with improv and all this stuff, there's so much tension with these interactions. But if that tension is handled the right way, it's embraced, and if that energy is allowed to flow in a controlled or in a profitable or in a godly fashion, the result is this big release that you get, all these pleasure chemicals that come out. So the fun we're having is because we're embracing the tension of these topics. And then being able to collaborate with, one of my best friends in the world is also a big part of this. Pastor Jonathan and I were having a conversation on the phone last week, and it was about political discussion going on in our culture right now.
Yeah.
And it was like a 15-minute conversation where we were both heated and passionate, talking back and forth. And Pastor Jonathan finished the conversation by saying, "We just did a podcast." But it was like, give us a topic. And the way him and I talk about these things on the podcast is the way him and I talk about everything.
Yeah.
And that's why we're having fun, is because what you're seeing a lot in these podcasts is me and Jonathan just being ourselves and living out the uniqueness God's given us. So that's
nice.
A whole other reason. I'd love to hear Pat. I just commentated a lot on many reasons why we have fun.
So many reasons.
Anything else you have to add, Pastor Jonathan? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, man. I mean, you said it a bunch of times, but how do we do it? Because we're doing it together. That's it. That's the simple answer. The simple answer is that Pastor Joel and I, we need each other to do this. We cannot do this podcast. I can't do this without Joel. I don't think he can do this without me. No. And it's just like, we are a perfect example of what it means to be interdependent, I believe. Wow. Or we're growing in being, that's the way I feel. I feel like we're growing in being a perfect example of interdependence, because what Joel does, I need, and what I do, he needs. Yeah. And because we need each other, that's how we can go through any situation. Yeah. And so part of, there's this in the TV show Stranger Things. One of the things that is talked about is something that's more powerful than, being really good looking, or both people being, attractive or good looking. Something that's deeper than anything is shared trauma.
Oh, yeah.
Is what brings these two, and they talks about these two characters being brought together because they have something different than their backgrounds or knowing each other for a long time. It's that they shared this trauma together. Yeah. Pastor Joel and I have been abused as pastors together. Yeah. And so we have this shared trauma, this shared church trauma of being attacked for what we believe is presenting the truth in love to people. Yeah. And all it's doing is it's bringing us closer together. And the same thing with our communities. The more we're persecuted, the closer it brings us together, and the more desire we have to share that with other people.
That's awesome.
So I think that's the reason, and it makes it enjoyable that you can turn to someone next to you that's going through it as well and go, this is ridiculous. Yeah. It's a podcast. We're recording shows and we're sharing what we believe God says in his word. And we named our show a funny name. And people are just they get up in arms about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an element of comedy to it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and there's an element of fun to this, where it's like, wow, so the more that we do this, the more ridiculous people are going to get. And it turns from, I think, being angry and upset to being joyful because, oh, that's how these people in the Bible did it. That's why they were rejoicing in persecution. That's why they felt so much joy going through it, because they were together. They were with someone else going through it. Like, I couldn't imagine experiencing all of this being isolated by myself, feeling the abuse. I feel like I would be completely different. I think it'd be a completely different experience. I think I'd be a lot more sad than I am. But when I am sad, I can go, hey, PJ, I'm sad. This bums me out. And he goes, yeah, man, me too.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the sadness will lift.
Right.
Because what is stronger is the connection that we have versus our sadness, you know? So
yeah.
That's my answer.
I like your answer better than mine.
Well, I like them both. I think they're both amazing. Thank you for helping me get to know this energy that you guys have between you. And the fun is just contagious. I just really enjoy it. And thank you, Jonathan, too, for talking about that connection that you have through trauma. And I think in the community that we're a part of on this podcast, where we want to help those who are hurting, a lot of the term that we hear is trauma bond. And the challenge around trauma bond, though, is that when people bond through trauma, a lot of times that becomes their only connection, and their relationship is defined by that trauma, and so they stay in that trauma. But what I'm excited about for you guys to bring to this community is to show how, trauma can bond people together, but you guys are showing how to have that connect, but then showing how there is a way to grow beyond that. There is a way to be healthy together and what you say interdependent, so that you guys can have fun, so that you guys can grow, so that you guys aren't saying this is the only way that we connect, so we just have to bond around our trauma. So that's amazing. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I would say that having shared trauma is having shared trauma. It's a have.
Yeah, nice.
You have Pastor Joel and I have this connection. But if our connection's built on what we have, then that's the same thing as like being a part of a millionaire club.
Right.
You know, like, or a billionaire club. We have a friend who lives on, Ocean Reef in Florida, and all these billionaires connect over what they have. Trauma is something that you have. You have this thing that affects who you are. But if then you go and you repair that, or you fix that trauma, or you lose the money that you have, if that is what bonded you together, that's gone. Same thing with what you do. Pastor Joel and I were very much bonded over what we do in What the Flock in terms of being pastors. But that's ultimately not even our connection as well. Our connection is one step deeper, and it is who we are. I know that I'm gifted to serve people. I know that I'm gifted in compassion. Joel knows that he's gifted in teaching. And we connect in who we are, and that impacts what we do and what we have. But that's where it's like, so that means that even if Joel and I chose different paths, or we did different things, if he goes, oh, I'm going to go this way, Joel goes, I'm going to be a college professor, and I go, oh, cool, I'm going to be a rock and roller. we still need each other. And we're still going to want to connect, because we know who each other is, and it makes us better people, because we're trying to repair and we're trying to grow. We're never trying to stay in the same spot that we are today. I'm hoping in a year, 2, 3 years, this will be a different interview with different people, but still growing that connection. So
right. That's good.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I think that's also why, when you were saying you guys know you need each other to have fun, because you understand your differences, like how to draw off of each other and how to need each other, so you're not competing with each other on this podcast. You're actually just allowing yourselves to be more you. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So with that, I heard you talk about, you know, the tension of you guys stepping into topics that you're like, oh, this might get some pushback. This might ruffle some feathers a little bit. And I do see, as we are in a time on social media and in the community where the perspectives and the opinions are getting further and further apart, and the tension is growing, and it's difficult to have conversations from two different perspectives. And so as I see you guys through this podcast, I'm seeing you step into that gap that we talked about, and you're showing and modeling how to understand the two different perspectives. But I also see you bringing the tension of confronting some deeply held beliefs and bringing the tension of saying that you have an ultimate answer that works for everybody in every context. So how would you like to encourage our listeners who may be skeptical that those types of answers even exist?
Give it a shot. Like the first thing I'd hope is, if you're listening, like the one of the issues I have is the people who come against us without even giving one episode a listen. So the skepticism we've gotten from people, even just like Pastor Jonathan said, because of what we name our podcast, we've had people blatantly judge us and say, I'm never going to listen to it because you're using corrupt language or implying corrupt language. And it's like, okay, that's too bad for them to not even give us a shot, to already judge us without hearing us. So other than that, like the first step I'd want is just before if you're skeptical, there is a right way to be skeptical. There ought to be a humility that comes with it. Maybe my first step ought to be like, I know.
I get it, right?
I'm one of the most skeptical
We're
people.
skeptical too.
Oh, yeah.
Here's our encouragement. We're skeptical too.
Right. And but with that, it's like, pair that with humility. Go ahead and listen to the humility episode if you need to.
Nice.
And that's where you can remain healthy with the skepticism. You have to not be skeptical. We don't want you to be gullible either.
Nice.
Have a healthy skepticism. What that means then is being open to it. You don't have to believe what we say. Give an episode a listen. Try it out. But ultimately, it's like, what I could ask somebody too is, do you believe that the Word of God has the ultimate answer for how to help you in any situation in your life? And I would hope if the person believes that, then it's like, well, what we've done is we've just, in our walk with God and our research and in us learning from the mentors and the pastors we've had before us, we've seen how the Word of God has worked in these areas. And we're just presenting to people things that have already benefited us. So there is an ultimate answer, because God is a God of truth. And
nice.
He wants to help us in any situation. And that's really all we're doing, is presenting that. But yeah, go ahead and be skeptical, but try to be healthy with it.
Yeah, which is great, because that is the conjunctive answer. The ultimate answer is the conjunctive answer. So as easily as you could say, you know, the conjunctive is neither side. The ultimate answer is neither side. Well, the ultimate answer has both sides involved with it as well. It's just that's where people go off course, is they go, it's one side or it's another side, or it, you know, but the ultimate answer involves both sides, but it is neither side. So, you know, grace being unmerited favor and grace being of works, you know, like all of that, it's like grace is neither. Grace does involve something that is merited. Grace does involve, like, there is something that is involved with both of these sides. The ultimate answer has to have both to it. You know, like, grace was given to us because of what Jesus did on the cross. That is, you know, God delivered something to us that costed something. There is a cost associated to it. Whatever you want to say, grace is free. Well, grace had a great cost, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we mean, where it's like, if to encourage people to pursue the ultimate answer is essentially what I say to pursue the ultimate answer myself. It's not, this is not my answer, and it's hard for me to follow as well.
Yeah.
So when we give the
Oh,
ultimate
yeah.
answer, it hurts me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable for me too. It's
This is my
uncomfortable
answer.
for me,
That's good.
for me
I love
to
that.
even, for me to even say that there's an element of grace that is merited. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel myself being roasted online by saying that. I can feel that.
Wow.
Where it's like, oh, this is tense. This is ouchy. This is ouchy for me to say it. And that's why it's not Pastor Joel and my answer. It's what we believe, but we are not the source of that answer. We believe that God is the source of that answer. So we need to mold to that answer and shape and be pliable to that truth as well.
Nice.
So that's one of the things, one of the issues I have with people's beliefs is the fact that, does it confront you? Does what you believe hurt you or impact you or squeeze you or change the way that you live, or does it help you feel comfortable?
Right.
Because what I believe just makes me go, I can't believe I'm actually going to say this in an interview.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say it, and like I'm having one of those moments where I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. He's gonna get roasted.
But we've said that, and
Oh, I
we've
love
said that in one of our episodes, maybe multiple. It's like, go ahead, if you think it's free, go ahead and tell Jesus what he did on the cross didn't cost anything.
Right.
No,
Oof.
I mean, what it's free means the works I do don't earn it. But that doesn't mean it wasn't merited in some fashion.
Yeah.
So I get you. But these are those things. It's like, if you say what you just said, our experience, Patty, is that people rarely seek to understand somebody, especially when they say something like what Pastor Jonathan said. It's a lot easier to just dismiss everything he says by one thing he said that made me feel uncomfortable. Instead of asking, what do you mean by that? That's all it takes. That's healthy skepticism, Patty. What do you mean by that? I don't have to believe you. I could be thinking Jonathan's bat crazy, full of it, and still ask him, what do you mean?
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, and the encouragement would be, like, I love that, Pastor Joel. Ask questions. Ask us questions. Please contact us.
Yeah.
Ask us questions. Like, let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. Can we please have a conversation?
Yeah.
About this? And if we're wrong, we want to know.
Yeah.
We want to know where we're wrong. But if people want to bring stuff up, like, I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's where I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. Me and Pastor Jake, friend of the podcast, were talking to a friend of ours, and the guy's like, like we were helping him in an area that was pretty easy for me and Pastor Jake to identify the solution. And the guy's just like, oh man, I wish I could just come up with the answer like you guys have. And I encouraged him. I said, the thing is, being wrong's great when we handle it the right way. It's the only way we can grow and become better. Really, what you're looking at is a lack. There's a gap in my knowledge. When I'm wrong, there's a gap in my knowledge. If I'm learning something new, it's because there was a gap in my knowledge. There was an area in my life I was wrong. I don't get better by somebody teaching me or me learning something I've already learned or I already know.
Yeah.
I don't become better by you teaching me 1 + 1 = 2. I already knew that. Right. So I just encourage the guy. I'm like, this is the only way we can grow. Right. Just find the areas we're wrong in. And that's why me and Pastor Jonathan are so adamant to just be, hooray, I'm wrong again. These are the areas we want. And I told him, and this is true. What I told this man His name's Adam. What I told Adam, me and Pastor Jake were hanging out with him. I said, every area that me and Jake are able to help you in is an area that we were wrong in the past.
Totally.
That's how you can see one through all 45 episodes of seasons 1 through 3 that we've published are areas in the past where me and Pastor Jonathan have been wrong.
Yep.
And we've only learned because we've embraced being wrong. We've admitted it. And we learned from it.
I'm just taking this like deep sigh of relief, because it's like I've lived with this tension so long for most of my life of just like, I need help, I want to help, but like I don't know how to help, but what if I'm wrong, and what if I do something wrong? It's like just this fear of being wrong. And so for you to be able to share about the tension of the ultimate answer, like that you are experiencing this, because this isn't an answer that is from you, that you have to make sure that you're right about. This is like something that you've been confronted in an area that you've been wrong. And I think that as people are out there trying to help those who are hurting, I think this is one of the best things that we can help them with, is to be willing to just take that step back and be like, where are you wrong? Where am I wrong? So that I can help those who are hurting. Because so many times those who are hurting are struggling with that too. They're just running forward with their plan that they think is the right way. And it's like, if we aren't willing to see where we're wrong, how are we going to help those who are hurting see where they're wrong?
100%. And and when you're saying that, Patty, I'm thinking about the Apostle Paul and how he was running hard. He had it all, you know, the most zealous, the most excited, the most passionate, the most, you know, aggressive, just the highest of the high, doing, and then found out catastrophically how wrong he was. But that whole, like, let's not forget how that story started. Let's not forget that it started with a guy who was he was persecuting those who believed in the Savior of the world. And he was going hard in the opposite direction. And he was killing people, but God was merciful towards him in all of the killing that was happening and helped him turn the other way. So there's so many of us, and I just feel like that should be an encouragement to all of us, where look what happened with the Apostle Paul. Did God smite the Apostle Paul? No, Apostle Paul believed that he was doing, or Saul believed he was doing the right thing.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
And it's like all of us do this all the time. We all believe we have the greatest intentions in the world to do the right thing. We're confronted in being wrong, so just turn. Just go the other way. We're all trying to do that. We're all getting confronted about all this stuff constantly. You know, the ultimate answer does do this. So let's not forget that some of our greatest heroes, like, we would not know what we know about eternity, you know, from without Paul turning. And it wasn't a guy who had it from the get-go. It was a guy that turned. That's how we got this. So imagine what is out there for us as a community, as a church, if people all started to turn. Yeah. And it's okay. Like, it's okay to be wrong. Paul or Saul was that way, and he turned. So
yeah, I'm imagining this person who is just going hard after what they think is right, but then while they're doing that, practicing what Pastor Joel talked about, that healthy skepticism, and just being like, all right, I'm just going because I believe that what I'm doing is right, but along the way being like, wait, what do you mean by that? And being willing to just pause for a second if they hear something different, to just say, wait, what did you mean? And be willing to hear and consider, because what if you might be wrong? Is it possible?
Yep.
That's all we want. That's all we want people to consider. Is it just possible? Just consider it. Is it possible?
Nice. So as we're wrapping up season 3, and as you guys are wrapping up season 3 of What the Flock, I have often been surprised at how emotional this journey has been for me, listening to the different perspectives of what I grew up on. And like you referenced, especially listening to the story of Pastor Tater and his family. So what did you expect when you first started? What was your expectation around how emotional this podcast would be for you? And how has it been compared to what you thought?
Going back to the season 1 to where we're at now, I didn't foresee any emotion. For me, it was more like, cool opportunity. Like, what a cool way for me to be able to be who God created me to be, and to teach these topics that I really want to talk about. The way the podcast has transformed over 3 seasons, and even the episodes that are currently in the works behind the scenes, it's turned into one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on in my life. And it has become real. I don't know if I get emotional. I'm apart from the positive emotions, I feel just very invested into this podcast, very invested into Pastor Jonathan and my partnership, and very invested into the people that are likely to be helped through this. So that's really where I see the emotion now. That wasn't even on my radar when we started. It was what was on my radar when we started was more like, what are we doing? What is this? Where are we going with this? What is this going to become? To where now it's become such a passion project. The emotion is the passion. I feel the happiness, and the foresight into how this is going to be, and already is, a timeless resource for people. There will never be a time, anytime in the future, where this won't be relevant to what people are going through and what the church needs, because again, because of the ultimate answer, right? One of context is time. When people if the answer we're giving is contextless, it means it's timeless. It means and that's where, so my emotion where I'm at now is just really just happy that I was able to be a part of this journey, and really, really excited. As great as season 3 was, you guys have no idea.
I know.
So I am very excited. Very excited.
Yeah. For me, when this all started, it was like I was pretty muted about it. I wasn't very excited to do it. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be a cool project with Joel and I, but there's better projects that I'm excited. There's more exciting projects than doing a podcast. It's like we're doing a podcast in like the boom of podcasts.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just what the world needs. Another podcast. Oh, look at us, saviors of the world. I'm like, okay.
Was that healthy skepticism?
No. No, it was not. It was way outside of the conjunctive. I was not in the truth. I'm just sitting there going, fine, let's do it. Let's see what happens. Let's figure out our process. But it was more of like, no, this is a need, so let's do it. But at first it felt like another thing. Just another thing that we were going to do that people weren't going to listen to. And it wasn't going to have any, and people weren't going to feel connected to it. Yeah.
And Jonathan's involved in especially around the time the podcast started, it was involved in many, many projects, especially in the same realm of like video and audio production type stuff too. So many things going on that he was very, very invested in. So this, I can totally understand why Pastor Jonathan would have just seen this as like the sixth, the
put it on the list. Okay, here we go. Yeah, put it on the list and accomplish this thing. It's like, here's another thing that we're gonna do. Well, guess what? I was wrong. this is not another thing. This is it. Pastor Joel said it. I feel like this is timeless.
Nice.
These are what is more timeless than two people talking about, their discoveries and their journey of the answers that have helped them with the truth.
Right.
It's like there's this concept in this podcast of going 2 by 2, being sent out to deliver a message. Like there's something big going on here. And the implications for what this can do, I think, is really exciting. So I was wrong there. Another thing that I was wrong about was I thought taking a call halfway through the episode was a mistake. I repeat, mistake. Mistake. Bad. No, we're going to take a caller in a podcast. Boo. Bad idea.
And how is he going to even know when we're recording?
I'm like, this is so dumb. And I was so against it. And now all of a sudden, there's people that are going, this is my favorite part. I wait for Pastor Tater to call, for
It's
Rich
the glue.
to call.
It's the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah.
And he is so much, like, his journey is so much of this podcast. His call is so much, and I look forward to these calls so much. And this is one of these, like, wow, I'm really glad that there's other people in my life. I'm so glad that there's a team behind What the Flock that can help us make the right decisions. And so I feel totally different and have two really amazing examples of being completely wrong from this podcast.
That's cool. I like that there may be, we are in a time period where there's new podcasts coming out every day, and a lot of Christian podcasts. I like to think that what sets us apart is the ultimate answer that we're given every episode. And I think it does. But I think the real thing that no one else is ever going to be able to have is a podcast with Pastor Tater calling in.
Yeah.
That is definitely something that sets us apart, is this man's journey that he's gone through with us through the seasons we've done so far, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But it's added this whole story to this podcast journey we're on that we wouldn't have foreseen early on. Even if I was to forecast what podcast is going to be about, I would have given you a list of topics we'd cover.
Right.
And I may have been right, but so much of it has been also experiencing the life and hurts and victories of Pastor Tater and his family through this, because of him calling in and being vulnerable and being humble. And so that's been awesome.
Yeah, and that has been surprising, because in the beginning I'm like, okay, what is this whole Tater thing gonna go? But it has been a big part of the experience for me, and especially with my heart and the heart of our listeners, of wanting to help those who are hurting. This man in season 1 who started out just being angry and arguing and fighting, and then through season 2 being willing to ask for help in his brokenness, and season 3 sharing more vulnerably. I just feel like I've learned from you, and our listeners can learn from you how you responded to him back in season 1 that set him up to feel safe enough to ask for help and share so vulnerably. What can you share to help us understand what you did to help Pastor Tater make this progression?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned, most of my tricks it's from Pastor Jonathan and from you, Pastor Patty, and from the Music Life Church Appleton crowd. It's really this refuge aspect that all the Music Life churches try to adhere to, but that the Music Life Church Appleton Church is the experts at, and recognizing I've been where he is. I've been frustrated. I've been in pride. I know what it's like to have deeply held beliefs that when they're challenged, it's the most painful thing in the world, and feeling like your world is crumbling if I imagine I'm wrong in an area. But it is recognizing we all need a safe place, and without it, I'm not going to grow. And without it, I can't be challenged if I'm not feeling safe. I can't be proven where I'm wrong. I'm not going to handle it in the way I ought to if I'm not in a place where I feel safe to be wrong. So just trying to provide, what one of the benefits Pastor Jonathan and I have coming into this podcast is we've been doing this a while. Like the podcast may be kind of new, but our walk with God and our ministering to people isn't new. So this wasn't the first time we had interactions with people like we had Pastor Tater. And my advice would just be to recognize that even when people are coming at you the way he came after us, it's not about you. It's really about that person dealing with whatever's going on in there. And the more we can absorb that blow and keep our thought process and continue to love that person, the more likely that person is to keep coming to you for help, or at least seeing you as a safe person they can come to for when they are ready for it. So
nice.
Yeah, perfect answer. We are not doing this podcast in our first time having conversations with Pastor Tater, because I tell you what, we recorded the first conversations that Joel and I had with someone like Pastor Tater, it would be a lot of yelling or a lot of shutting down. That's what we would have heard. We would have heard a lot of silence, a lot of yelling, and then a lot of silence. But now it's, again, because of the experience that we've had, we're trying to help give people that understanding for the experience that we've had. And so, an advice that I would give is what Pastor Joel said and what you were talking about, Patty, is really focusing on understanding someone else first.
Nice.
Let's just understand. Let's just understand them first. We're gonna do a show. We have truth that we're gonna present. Just because someone disagrees doesn't mean that we're just gonna present the truth. So that's one thing where it's like, no, I'm gonna present the truth regardless of if someone is offended by it or not, because I believe that's what we're called to do. Is I'm gonna present the truth, and I'm gonna do it in love, and I'm gonna be careful, and I'm gonna be caring in the way that I'm doing it. But I'm not going to pull my punches. Right. I'm not helping Pastor Tater. Joel is not helping Pastor Tater if we pull our punches. But we can do it in a kind and caring way. We can deliver the truth in a way that is for Pastor Tater's benefit, in a way that's actually going to help him and help our listeners simultaneously. So I love what Pastor Joel said, and I just want to affirm this. It's not personal.
Right.
Yeah.
We're dealing
with it can feel personal though, right?
I know. But it's not. It's their beliefs are being confronted. The deepest, most important thing in someone's life, especially if they are professing Jesus, if they have a belief that is wrong in that and it's being confronted, it's very hard for them to express, Patty, I am feeling very insecure because of the questions that you've asked and the information that you've shared with me.
Oof.
So I am curious if you could provide more information and you could affirm and share with me that I'm not a bad person simultaneously.
Yeah. That's all that's going on within them, but they don't have words for that, right?
Exactly.
Or even if they did, the self-esteem to say that. I'm sitting here.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm sitting here thinking, man, I wish I was more brave in being able to today. Like that. That takes a lot. It does. There is a level of self-esteem, this confidence in who you are, to recognize being wrong doesn't detract from who I am. But we miss that. So many people miss that. I've missed that so many times in my life. There's still areas in my life where I guard against that. And I just try to now look at those are the areas in my life where there's the most opportunity for growth. But it is not easy to go through what Pastor Tater went through, especially season one. For him to keep calling in, proved it wasn't about us.
Oh, you gotta give it up for him, man.
Yeah,
honestly,
he kept calling. He kept
nice.
calling.
Yeah. There was such emotion in season 3. I mean, I was brought to tears when Pastor Tater was sharing, and there were times where he just hung up because he just didn't have any more words. Like, it just becoming aware of how much pain he was in around his son and around what happened with the previous church. It was just like, I felt it. And so I just, again, really want to thank Pastor Tater and his family for giving us a window into their life, into their story, to help us learn from that. And again, like you said, the strength, the courage for him to keep calling, for him to keep sharing, because it is hard. It's hard when we have these areas that it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about it. So to end it on a cliffhanger and be like, what? And have his son call in and being like, oh, it was so amazing to just hear from him. And I just want to know, like, what can we look forward to in season 4 about Pastor Tater and his family?
I'll say, I mean, I'll say this, if you think the journey has been a roller coaster of emotions so far, that trajectory doesn't change. It continues to ramp up in certain ways, and there's a lot of victory, a lot of challenge along the way as well. I honestly, as far as season 4 goes, I don't want to spoil too much or anything really. I just can't, like, when we were mid production, I remember at the time season 3 was going live, certain episodes were going live, while at the same time we're in production for season 4, and people are raving about season 3. And I'm literally sitting there, Patty, thinking season 3 is nothing compared to
oh my goodness.
And I love season 3. I love it. But that's how much I had just a blast in season 4, and how I think transformative the information that's being shared is. And it is just ridiculous in the most positive of ways. I can't wait for people to experience it. It's going to be amazing.
Yep, we are going to, and I believe our listeners are going to go even deeper into who the Taters are. We're gonna go even deeper. So, as I hear how emotional you got, Patty, with this season, I think we're gonna go even deeper the next
that
season.
Is awesome. I'm excited, and I just feel like I'm just imagining more tears, but also more joy, and just the range of emotions. And so again, it's just, I really value this family and what they're allowing us to watch and listen to as they go through this. So I did hear, though, in season 3, a couple little nuggets about what season 4 is going to be covering, as Pastor Tater was asking about prayer, and how in talking about reward in season 3, that Pastor Joel, you mentioned that prayer and reward impacts how God's will comes forth. It's like, wow, big topics that you dropped about season 4.
Good catch.
You have definitely proven yourself to be an avid listener. You may be onto something there.
Nice. Yeah. So, like, how can we be ready for this? What would you recommend us to be ready to be able to hear these drops?
What I would be ready for is some topics that may be a little bit more complex than what you're used to.
Okay.
And to recognize that you can always re-listen to episodes.
Nice.
You don't have to listen to them every week. You know, take your time with this. Enjoy it. If you need more time to digest, then listen to it again, or even reach out, talk to us, talk to your friends about it, talk to other people you know are listening. That'd be what I do, is just try to enjoy it and know that the podcast isn't going anywhere. All the episodes from seasons 1 through 3 are still live. You can listen to any of those too.
They're timeless, right?
They are, and we start more often than ever. We are referring back to older episodes because of the way this podcast is built. So another thing you can do, if we refer to a doctrine that you're still not feeling confident on, go back and listen to that episode again. And because we do a pretty good job of making sure we don't breach any subjects that we have, like, that are pivotal to understand something without having done an episode on that thing before. So yeah, I would just take your time with it if you need to, and enjoy the ride.
Yep, absolutely. And what I would say is, if we are covering such complicated and complex topics, my encouragement, and I think that people are going to see that right off the bat. I think you can see it with, we're covering discipleship in season 3, you know, and it's so much more complex that we are continuing to go down a complex road. So, you know, I would just encourage our listeners to, if they can, listen to, you know, them as they come out, because we're laying a foundation, and the foundation is so much more important to have a solid foundation, because the more complex the doctrine or the topic is, the more easily it is to trigger when you find out you're wrong. You go, oh my gosh, I've been doing that wrong. Like, oh, I didn't have that right. Or, oh, I'm on the loose side, or I'm on the freedom side, and it becomes, or, you know, the strict side or the loose side. And you can feel that it becomes more clear where you are on what side, the further we progress in certain topics.
Right.
So, hey, it's nothing personal.
Nice. Well, I'm excited. I think our listeners will have a lot to look forward to in season 4. And I love the encouragement to just be like, if you are feeling some tension and you are seeing these things getting more complicated, you can always go back to refer to seasons 1, 2, and 3 to get those building blocks so that we can have more confidence stepping into it. So looking forward to it. I do thank you for your time, Pastor Joel and Pastor Jonathan, for sharing with us about the previous seasons, helping us get ready for season 4. And I really do encourage everybody to get ready for the ride. Season 4 coming. What the Flock podcast and Music of Life Church podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Patty. This is great.
Thank you.